The various garments throughout the scene in Times Square are made up of many different types of materials. There's one of the movies that deals with denim. In this one, we're going to have a simplified version of that denim material. I'm going to go in here and zoom in on this little guy in the SUV right here, and you see that his garment is a little more of a coarse type of material. That's what we're going to cover in this particular movie. So we're going to go in here and brand new file, and I'm going to create a little swatch. There's a little swatch right here, which is going to be the fabric. And in a separate layer, everything goes into its own layer. I'm going to fill it with a color that I want this fabric to be. So let's just say we go with a gray color. Just go ahead and fill it with a gray. Now that we have that, we're going to apply a filter to that swatch of material. And it's a simplified filter. It's right here. It's under Sketch. It's called the halftone pattern, which was one of the filters that was used in creating the denim. But here, it's the only filter that's going to be used. Clicking on halftone pattern, we see that right now it's set to lines, so we're going to change that to dots. You could also have circles. That's not quite what we want. We want dots. And it creates this whole series of little dots. We can increase the size of those dots, like so. And I can go in there and play with the contrast. If I bring the contrast all the way up, it's going to sharpen them up, a bunch of little circles like that. So I can bring it down just a little so they go back to being squares, and then bring it way down so they just become a kind of blurry squares like that. Click OK. And there we see that we now have this kind of a material right there. Now, being a material, I can go in there and create all these nice little folds and stuff to it. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to go in here and just do a little warp on it. So go in there and just kind of bring this guy over, bring this in like this, and twirl this guy in, and bring this guy over like that, and bring this over, and just kind of pull this guy out and kind of bend it like so. And we'll bend this one in and bring this up. So there we can see we've added some movement to this fabric, which now we have to add a couple of little highlights and shadows to it. So all we're going to do is go in there with our burn tool and start to add some tones. Now we can kind of darken these areas right in here. As you can see that I'm doing just very lightly. It's darkening all those little tones right into that area here, and maybe get larger areas into this right here. We'll just add a little darkening right through this area right in here. And we can increase the exposure so that it'll get a little darker. There you can see that we're adding all these nice little dark tones along here and so on. And a little darkening right up into this area here, and maybe some highlights in a couple of spots. So we'll go to our dodge tool. We'll set it to our midtones is good. Increase that exposure, and a bigger brush, and we'll just throw a couple of highlights right through here and right through there. And you can see where we start to get this sense of this fabric, but it's just one single filter that was used in this particular case to create that slight texture there. Once it's put into all the appropriate folds and such, you can even do a little puppet warping in here to really get some creases happening. That's how you'll get that final effect that you saw in the painting. Now, if you want to see that in tighter detail, we'll zoom in on this fabric right here, and here you can see the same fabric, but there it's got a little more control to it and a little tighter, the dots, so that they start to form that kind of a feel there.